welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you're new. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and let's get right into this video. So today we are just doing a regular nail set using some polygels, and I got here someone y'all have been missing, Miss Spice.
It's me, and these are my nails. Hello.
What have you done? What happened?
I've been busy.
So finally she's getting a nail set done, but sadly we're gonna have to take them off in the end. She got a job, so she can't wear long nails anymore, but I really wanted her to be in a vid. Okay, anyway, let's just get right into it. So we're first just gonna start off by pushing, oh my gosh. Her cuticles are really stubborn, so I just like to wipe them with some isopropyl alcohol to kind of loosen them up. I don't know if this helps, but I think it does. Now we're just gonna push back the cuticles. And also in this video, we're gonna be continuing reading some Reddit stories. We left you guys on a big cliffhanger, a 5-month-long cliffhanger from our last Reddit story video. Okay, now I'm gonna take my fine grit sanding band and I'm just going to remove all this leftover gel polish. Okay, now I'm gonna take this circular drill bit and I'm just gonna work that around the cuticle area. I just got my cuticle scissors and now I'm just going to trim off this excess dead skin, take my nail clippers and just cut off this little excess nail growth. Take my hand file and just smooth out the free edge of the nails. Take my sanding band once again and remove all the shine from these nails, but not really shine, kind of just pushing back the cuticle a little more and then removing the little excess gel polish I have. Okay, now I'm going to take these not polished nail tips and I'm just going to size them out. So now I'm just going to take my KDS glue and I'm going to glue all these nail tips on. Okay, now I'm going to take my tip cutters and I'm just going to cut down these nails. Okay, I'm just going to reshape these nail tips. So now I'm going to take my fine grit sanding band and remove the shine from all the nail tips. Okay, now I'm going to use my Mia Secret Dehydrator.
Okay, guys, now I'm gonna put this gabagoop on the nails and get to curing. Tell me it's not gabagoop theme. It's not gabagoop texture right now.
It's not.
Oh.
It's not gabagoop.
I said gabagoop. I said I'm hungry for gabagoop. Oh man, you chugged it. You chugged the shit. It's the smell.
That was funny. Now I'm shaking. So we're just gonna get into the polygel now. I'm gonna be using this Daydream color from the Makartt Nude Polygel kit. We're doing French tip, so we're gonna start with, you know, the base French tip oval shape. So now we're gonna start reading the Reddit stories.
Hi guys, it's me, Spice. I don't know if you guys remember the Reddit story that we left a huge cliffhanger on. It's been like 5 months. It's called I Found a Secret Room in My House. To recap, it's basically about this girl who lives by herself and she felt like she had like someone like broke into her house or something, so she went to investigate, and then turns out like she went to her like office room, and in the office room has a closet, and the closet has like this like tiny door, secret door type of thing. So she went into the door and she found like the room that it leads to can have access to like her bedroom. Like she can, like the person in that room can see her bedroom, the main room. It had like pizza boxes and napkins and like a little bed. So it was like someone was living there, and they like literally ran out before like they could like get caught by her, because I guess they seen her like get out of bed and go investigate. So then she calls the cops. Okay, ma'am, we've been investigating it. We'll send someone on the way. And so the cop comes, looks, checks it out, and be like, I don't see anyone, but we'll keep our like lookout for him. And
no,
then
they were mean. He said, oh, well, he's not here right now, so we can't really do anything. So, and then she was like, wait, do I stay here? Do I go? And he's like, I guess you could go stay in a hotel. You know what I mean? But she didn't want to spend money on hotels, so she stayed in her house.
And then after that, police come over. She calls her dad, and she like hears like like it feels like another phone line is open, like listening in on the conversation of her and her dad, and the dad is like trying to give her like Morse code or something with numbers. And then after the phone call, she figures out the code that her dad was trying to give her. Oh, and the code was run. And so she calls the police, and the operator sends police on their way again. And she asked the operator, like, there was a police officer that visited me on this day and told me da 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 da. And then the operator's like, we don't have report of any officer coming to your house. And so she's thinking, like, who the heck came to my house then?
Like,
and
it wasn't a police officer that came to her house, because they had no record of it, and they had no record of her first 911 call. They didn't have record of it. So whatever she called into and whoever came to her house was not police.
And she's wondering, who did I call and how did they pretend to be the police? Like, you know, like, I guess they were already on the phone line while she was calling it, and they pretended to like be like brr, brr, and hello operator, blah blah blah. So right now we're getting to the part where she's like actually talking to the police, and she's wondering like who is in her house when she called the police last time, the fake police. So now I'm gonna read from that point. And by the way, the main character girl, her name's Olivia.
She has like her safety items that she talks about a lot. Like, she talks about her stuffed animal called Little Doodles, and then she has her baseball bat, which she calls Louisville Slugger. So yeah, she talks about those a lot.
But I'm gonna continue reading where we left off. And if you guys want to rewatch those vids to hear...
Yeah, I'll link the other videos that have the other parts of this story, if you guys want to hear that first, in the description.
I was standing alone on a dark street in the middle of the night, wearing only my pink silk pajamas and stuffy sloth slippers, holding a Louisville Slugger in one hand and Little Doodles in the other hand, when my world turned upside down. You're saying... I mumbled, the words violating my larynx like sandpaper, that a man pretended to be a cop when he came into my home last week? The phone clicked momentarily before the 911 operator's voice muffled the sound. That's exactly what I'm saying, Olivia. And that there's no police record of the man who's been living in the hidden room in my house? I've been sleeping there for weeks, assuming the cops were keeping an eye on me while he was... I dry heaved before catching my breath again. While he was adding to his pile of crusty tissues, I wobbled and nearly fell onto the grass. And he's probably watching me right now because I just saw a light turn on inside my house while I'm standing outside. He cleared his throat. Do you live alone, Olivia? I nodded before realizing that he couldn't see me. Main character moment. Are you kidding me? You nodded while you were on the phone? I nodded before realizing that he couldn't see me. My brain felt like it was spit roasting 3 feet above my hair. Yes, I'm alone. At least I thought I was. Okay, he responded quickly. We have a car heading out to pick you up right now. Just stay where you are. Your house number is 1913, correct? The first hints of relief washing through me. I relaxed my grip on the bat, but it felt distant, like I was watching someone else's arm. That's right, I'm here now. Please hurry. We're hurrying, just don't go anywhere, okay? He even sounded slightly on edge. Would it be a good idea for me to move away from the house? I'm pretty sure he's inside. No, he interrupted. We need you to stay where we can find you. Oh, I felt lightheaded. Okay, I'll stay right here. What if she's not on the phone with an actual police?
And then they're gonna kidnap her this time.
Because they know where she's standing. Oh my god, I'm kind of scared.
Because it does sound like, why would you say no like that? Wouldn't you want them to get somewhere safe?
Yeah. Wouldn't you want them to get somewhere safe? Calmness slowly pulled my brain back down to earth, reeling it in like a gently tethered balloon. Strange as this was, we're going to straighten it out. I didn't know what was going on, but holy smokes, thank every one of Zeus's what the heck? But holy smokes, thank every one of Zeus's nipples that it hadn't been too late. I'd been so sure that the cop was real. It chilled me to the liver when I considered just how convincing he'd been. The man last week had played it so calm, like he actually didn't care. How was I supposed to recognize a fake police officer when I met him? My breathing stopped, not metaphorically. I actually ceased breathing from fear. Olivia, can you hear me? How was I supposed to know which was fake, which was real? The car's almost there, Olivia. All I knew is that one of the two had mostly ignored me, while the other was contacting me through a phone immediately after Dad had used the phone to tell me to run. And that message had been coded because he clearly thought that someone was listening in. Headlights appeared at the end of my street. The car raced towards me. No one else was around. I lowered a shaking hand, holding the phone by my side. The car screeched to a halt directly in front of me, and I breathed. It was a cop car. That can't be faked, can it? It would be much easier to pull together an imposter's uniform than to steal a police cruiser. This person had to be the legit one. I relaxed slightly. A tall, thin man hopped out of the driver's seat. He too was dressed like a cop. I made a split decision who to trust, the lazy cop who did nothing to help me, or the one connected to 911 service and driving an authentic car. Olivia? He asked, stepping out to approach me, leaving his keys behind with the engine running. Yes, I answered, relieved. His pocket echoed. Oh no, it echoed with my voice. I hadn't been talking to a 911 operator at all. This man had been speaking to me through his cell phone as he drove to find me, a phone that was now in his pocket.
Because 911 operators aren't policemen. They're just 911 operators.
They stay at the station. They stay seated
so
somewhere.
he would never have gotten on the phone with her. Because he's not a 911 operator. He's a police. They're like, there's someone in your house and this also other guy? Like, who is this other guy too?
The dad told her to run. And I would have ran right when the police officer said, no, stay right there.
I'd be like, I'm going somewhere safe.
What? 911 operators don't have to be so concerned about locations that they can gather through cell phone pings. I need you to come with me, he explained authoritatively. I nodded and slid my phone into my pocket. Then I tossed Doodles right at him. That man reached out in surprise and caught the stuffed dog, which is the natural human reaction when something flings at your head. This momentarily exposed his torso. I jabbed the bat handle forcefully into his gut. He doubled over and wheezed, then bent down in front of me, clutching his stomach. It was the perfect angle for me to bring the Louisville Slugger down on his skull. Crack!
Oh, God.
It sounded like a hammer made of fingernails carving a frozen, dusty chalkboard. He collapsed, and I stepped over him. My hands were on the door handle when I stopped cold. Turning around, I could still see that he was still conscious, but writhing in pain on the ground. I quickly moved back to him, hoping the sloth slippers muffled my footsteps, raising the bat high. I bent down and snatched Doodles from his chest. Thanks, I whispered to the stuffed dog. Then I raced for the police car's open door, threw Doodles and the bat onto the seat next to mine and shut it behind me, and I threw it into drive. Dang, cop cars are powerful. I spun an erratic 180 before punching the gas and heading down the street. I glanced at the rearview mirror just before turning the corner. The man laid unmoving beneath a streetlight. I let out a deep, shuddering sigh of relief. Hey, Olivia, came a voice from the back seat. Okay, now we're on to the next part of the story. Pooping a brick is supposed to epitomize the height of fear, but that's entirely wrong. The sensation is more akin to pooping out an especially thick and slimy cephalopod tentacle that slowly snakes its way around the rear end, inches along, suspending flesh, then tickles your ear canal with a vomiting, pseudo-erotic penetration that shows its owner it's very much alive in the pit of your gut. That's exactly what it feels like to hear a voice from the back seat of a stolen police cruiser. My body seemed to move of its own accord. Distantly, I knew that I was driving to the top of a nearby rise in the road. Perhaps I was seeking out a pleasant view for when the end came. Olivia, pull over! The man ordered aggressively. I knew that I would obey in a short time. He didn't appear to realize the same thing as he shuffled anxiously behind me. I turned a corner and ascended the soft hill. The car squeaked as I pulled to the side of the road. I kept my foot pressed firmly on the brake, leaving the engine running. When he spoke again, the calm confidence had ebbed. Finally! Okay, the bat. It goes out the window. Now, how to play that gamble? It was my only weapon. If he had a gun pointed at me, holding it would do no good. In the case he was bluffing though, I'd be losing the only thing that had kept me safe. Look at this picture, Olivia. Every individual vertebrae squirmed at a slight different angle. I didn't want to see his photo, but had no power to stop myself from turning around and checking. The man held his cell phone against the metal mesh that separated the front seat from the back. His screen shined brightly enough to keep his face obscured. Everything else dimmed from my sight as I took in the image. I'd never seen my dad look so afraid. What? My voice fizzled like air from a deflating balloon. What are you going to do to him? That's not up to me. Throw that bat outside right now, or you'll never outlive the guilt knowing we hurt him because of your disobedience. I opened the door crack and chucked the Louisville Slugger out, sending little doodles with it, for good measure. Stupid girl, you need to know something now, Olivia. The burning edge of a panic attack danced just in front of me, playfully hinting that it was ready to light the spark of a complete Tasmanian meltdown, but it stayed just beyond arm's reach.
So now that we got the nude part done, I'm just going to reshape them because I want this line to be really crisp.
I already know 2 things, I answered. My voice sounded like it was coming from underwater. I really know 2 things. Is that underwater voice? I'm just kidding. The first is that you're an a-hole. Olivia, he stuttered, taken aback. Those are very foolish words. And the second, I pressed, is that this appears to be a real cop car, which means the metal partition is solid and you can't unlock the doors from the inside of the back seat. Olivia, you don't. I yanked the stick into neutral as I rode towards the ajar door, tumbling gently onto the asphalt. The car moved as soon as I released the brake. I looked up to see the back wheel barreling down on my shoulder. I reeled away just as the tire pinched the edge of my pink silk pajamas. Okay, so she didn't get rolled over.
Okay, yeah.
She almost did. And she was like, oh, poop. And then she moved. And then I breathed again, scooping up Doodles and the Louisville Slugger. I stood and watched the police car accelerate towards the ravine at the bottom of the hill I'd chosen.
Oh my.
It was a high-quality police car. I couldn't even hear him scream. But no automobile can survive even one drop off a 91-foot cliff. 3 seconds later, the taillights disappeared into the darkness. Thoughts? She's like a killer. What if she's the killer? Movies would have us believe that every minor accident ends with a major explosion. But all I heard was the soft crumple of metal reverberating. Any doubt of the man's survival was answered, with quickly growing flames that danced on the underside of tree leaves high above. I didn't know what to feel, so I couldn't process it. I slipped Doodles into my pocket and squeezed him tight. My mind was in all probability breaking in that moment. The only thing I could process was the lone, unarguable truth. It was too much. I swayed. If I could balance, that would be enough. If I could balance and not vomit, it would be a challenge. But if that were possible, I could focus on saving Dad. I vomited, then I finished. I stood up again, and nothing had changed. I still had to get home to my parents. No one was going to take me there, so I stepped forward. Oh, God. That's when 2 men tackled me from behind.
What?
There was no contest. This time, as the bat flew from my hands and they slammed me onto the pavement, I understood nothing but pain and dizziness as I landed on my shoulder and temple. They bound my hands and feet before squeezing me so tight that I could hardly breathe. Now, panic decided to stroll into town, wrapping spindly fingers around my throat as each breath pushed me further from calm. Now the adrenaline took over while I couldn't move my limbs. Now I felt weak as 2 significantly stronger men threw all their effort into squishing my 100-pound body while they hauled me to the car's open trunk. There was no resistance. I couldn't fight back against them anymore that I could lift a house. The only thing left was to absorb pain as they tossed me into the trunk and the hood closed over my head.
Alright, now that we got the nude part of the nails all shaped up and looking pretty good, I'm gonna take this polygel from the Makartt Nude Polygel kit. Okay, now I'm just gonna take this color, and it's not the exact color as what I want. So I'm gonna take this gel polish, and I'm just gonna mix them in. I hope it works. I'm just gonna take this mixture, put it on the nail. It's like frosting a cake. And now I'm just going to smooth this out.
I was super mad. Yes, I was scared, confused, ashamed, violated, and unbelieving. All can be added to the pile as well. But I was mostly angry. Movies love to show heroes struggling to break free after being locked in a trunk. They might pick a lock or break through the back seat. That stupid stuff doesn't work. I bounced around in pitch darkness as we drove for a small eternity. Girl, you can punch out the back lights. And also, cars have like that pull tab, so you can't be stuck in the trunk anymore. Like, I'd lost my phone in the struggle and couldn't call for help or even check the time. I bet her phone is rigged anyway. I knew the anger wouldn't improve anything, so I squeezed Lil Doodles, my tiny stuffed dog, who was in the pink silk pajama pants pocket. I relaxed slightly. I knew that I should let the anger go. Nope. I got mad all over again. I thought of not being mad at the crusty tissue crew that had been hiding in my apartment. They were horrible through and through. There is no reason on God's green earth that a cadre of strange men should be living in my walls and tapping my phone. They deserve what they got. I considered the man I set off on the cliff and the other I bashed with the now lost Louisville slugger. The thoughts chilled and stilled me, but I didn't panic, and I was still angry. We're going to open the trunk. If you resist, we'll shut you back inside and burn you alive, just like you did Oscar. Capiche? I didn't know if I was waking up. I had no recollection of the car stopping. The cramped trunk ride had separated my body and mind from one another. I simply lacked the wherewithal to attempt my resist, and I was cognizant enough to realize that attacking the men with nothing but stuffy sloth slippers was a fool's errand.
This is not like...
What?
It's not like smooth. Like, there's bubbles in it. It's too hard to smooth out because it's like liquidy now. Change of plans. We're just gonna use this polygel color because when I mix the polygel and the gel polish, it's just a little too liquidy, and then it has bubbles in it, and it's just not right.
Movies also like to depict a hero delivering a brilliant zinger just at the right moment, which is also nonsense. I obeyed silently as two men opened the trunk and stood back, pistols aimed at my head. The first thing to strike me was that they seemed so ordinary. I would not have given these men a second glance if I passed them at Starbucks. I shivered, but couldn't say why. This seems like real life. The second is that I recognized a familiar scent. I think everyone can feel that they're home before seeing it. I hyperventilated as they dragged me from the trunk. Are we at my parents' house? Did you take me to my parents' house? The pistol whip was very loud. I knew only aggressive pain as they dragged me inside by my hair, wanting just a moment to catch my breath and sob out the hurt, but they kept moving, head down in blindly agony. I cried out as they threw me on the floor, where I could finally writhe in pain undisturbed. Warm, wet slickness coated my fingers as I clutched my scalp. Olivia! I'd never heard my father truly, honestly panicked. That type of fear had no compromise. Once our parents are genuinely petrified, no basis of order is left in the world. Why do you think these people are gathering all of them as a family? Or something like that. Like what?
Like the dad's involved, the daughter's involved.
Yeah, like what is it about their family? What is their family?
It's not like an ordinary stalker living in your house. This is like organized, kind of. Like they had the two guys in the first cop car, and then they had the two backup guys who kidnapped her after.
Daddy? I whispered, crawling towards his voice. They hurt me, Daddy. My prouding hand found his leg. I laid my head down on his jeans. He didn't react. I propped myself up on shaking palms and opened my eyes. The sight before me was blurry but unambiguous. Dad's arms were handcuffed to the radiator behind his back. What'd they do to you? I gasped, head splitting in pain as I reached for his wrist. That's far enough, Olivia, one man said. I froze, then slowly I turned around. You know what? I mumbled. You're a real jerk. There's no reason to bring her into this, Dad pleaded, his voice shook with controlled panic. I'm not going anywhere. You can let her go and nothing will change. The man sighed. You're not going to help us get what we need. Dad cried. Dad actually cried. I had never heard him cry before. I don't know what you're talking about, he finished. The air hung thick. The acute pain in my skull slowly dimmed as the room became more focused. We were in the kitchen. The man blocked our only exit. His companion hung back, looking nervous. The first man, a thin grayish wallflower, was the only one who had spoken. A red streak reached across the butt of his gun. He must have been the only one who hit me. Why? What was the reason these freaks possibly have been tormenting my family? We weren't rich. My parents were boring people who drove a beige Volvo. I leaned towards Dad as the thin man retreated to whisper with the other kidnapper. Daddy, why are they... There's a button at the back of the cupboard where we keep the pots and pans. It opens a trapdoor in the middle of the kitchen floor. It used to be a wine cellar, but now it's a panic room that resists heat and shock. My thoughts snapped back into focus as I became consumed with the all-encompassing desire to know precisely what the heck is going on. I was silent. Look, the thin man approached us once more. You know the stakes. It's over. Are you really going to do this? I wanted to scream, to run, to fillet this man and feed it to a walrus while I cried for 1,153 minutes and squeezed doodles while Dad stroked my hair. Instead, I looked up at my father's eyes and tried to remember everything about him that made me happy. That was impossible, though. He was miserable and afraid, which blocked out all other thoughts. Okay, the man raised his pistol. Wait! I struggled before balance. Pop! The sound hurt my ears. I turned around to see my dad's face twisted in pure agony as the blood poured from the middle of his stomach. Dad, don't die. Please grow old and share your life with me. My words sounded bizarrely mundane and underwater as I spoke them. The man who had shot my father in the stomach walked calmly out of the room. Movies love to depict heroic gunshot deaths, but this was a mess. I pressed my hands against his abdomen as dark blood and hot intestines squished between my fingers. Dad struggled to articulate words that were interrupted by blood vomit. Is this too graphic? Is this too much? I spoke with detached shock, knowing that I had to act fast. I thought of the last things I wanted to say to my father. It was a lot of pressure for 5 seconds. I'm sorry for all the times I was a little shite. You were my little shite, he gasped. Now listen carefully, he coughed blood. The men have gone upstairs to my office. You need to push the button at the back of the cupboard and hide in the shelter below the floor. He coughed again. His face was gray. There are 2 levers on the wall, he mumbled. The left one closes the hatch above you. He was silent. And the other? I whispered. It will quickly incinerate the house. You need to destroy everything in my office, and those people deserve to be cooked. You remember when he said, like, there's a secret shelter under the house? It's heat-proof and shock-proof.
She will live when the house goes boom.
I nodded because I had no idea what else to do. But we have to get you to the hospital as fast as we can. Olivia, every minute is crucial. You're losing blood. Olivia, I can only hold back the bleeding for so long. You can stop now, slugger. Flashback. Daddy looked down on me as I stared at the dirt between my cleats. Why do I have to bat? I hate everyone watching me. He scratched his still brown hair beneath the blue bowl cap. Because you're 8 years old, Olivia, and it's time to stop being afraid of things you're capable of doing. I kicked the dirt, afraid to look up at the eager crowd. A few dozen people can feel like a filled Yankee Stadium when you don't want to be watched. Dad sighed. Okay, Olivia, remember that stuffed dog you saw at Toys R Us? The one I said you couldn't have? My eyes grew twice as big as I finally looked up to him. You mean Lil Doodles? Yeah, he sighed, that one. You can have it if you step up to the plate. I wavered. But what if I strike out? He laughed and I felt nervous. If you go out there, strike out, and head back into the dugout with a brave face on, you'll have come further than if you hit a double. He handed me the bat. The next time will be easier, I promise. Hurry up, slugger. End of flashback. My jaw hung open because I had no words to form, so I forced it. Dad, I will not leave you here. He squeezed my hands and my world spun. What about Mom? I eked out in a voice I could barely hear. His lips trembled. They got to her first. It was quick, I promise. It was a profound survival instinct that kept us from experiencing too great a shock all at once. My essence seemed to float above me, leaving my head cold and empty, like a snow cone that had been drained all of its flavor. Footsteps echoed down the stairs. Dad raised his eyebrows before his head rolled to his shoulders. Instinct told me that I didn't have time to wait. I drove for the cupboard and threw an armful of pots and pans onto the floor, with an ear-splitting clatter moving through the cookware like I was swimming in my anger. And there it was, 2 feet in front of me sat a tiny button that I had not noticed in 18 years of my childhood, now ready to unlock everything I didn't want to know. The best way to hide something is to tell people it's normal. I pushed it. A small hatch in the floor opened behind me. I sat down and dangled my legs over the edge, looking at the dark floor, some 7 feet below. How was I supposed to get there? Get the girl, Oliver. She still proved useful to us. His voice shouted from the bottom of the stairs. I had jumped before thinking about jumping. The stuffy sloth slippers were not meant for shock absorption, but I ignored the pain and sprang to my feet. 2 levers protruded from the wall in front of me. Is that a hole in the kitchen floor? I pulled the left one. The hatch closed just as the trigger's man face appeared above me and soft light illuminating the hatch. Wait, Dad, I didn't tell you goodbye, I screamed as the top snapped shut. Wait! My voice was muted by the heavily insulated walls. Dad, I didn't mean to make you die alone. Dad, I didn't mean to make you die alone, I sobbed. I'm sorry, Dad. I collapsed against the wall and heaved. I'm sorry I made you die by yourself. I promise that I love you. Hyperventilation stuck its finger into my brain and swirled it around like a gooey cheese melting in French onion soup. The right hand lever sat before me. My breathing slowed. I'm so sorry. You should have a pretty funeral with your most handsome suit. You shouldn't be a barbecued skeleton. I touched the lever with a feather-light grip. I'm sorry. I felt weak. I thought of the 2 men pacing inaudibly above me. Perhaps they were trying to escape my house. They might have been getting ready to run at the exact moment, thinking of the future Christmases with their families and idle nostalgia, and the million other things that make us want to grow old. They didn't know I could take it all away from them. Even if they knew, who would suspect that I was capable of burning 2 men to death? I reached into my pocket and squeezed little doodles. Then I grabbed the lever and pulled it. At first there was nothing. Then sudden heat radiated from the ceiling so powerfully that I had to lie down on the dirt floor. Above me, my childhood home burned to the ground. There are moments when you're in so deep it feels easier to just swim down. The house must have burned quickly because the hatch opened of its own accord just after a few minutes. As I laid still on the ground, staring at the dark patch of the sky above, I only had a single thought. What was the purpose of getting up and facing the ruins of my life? Days, months, years of agonizing rebuilding lay ahead of me, and no matter how hard I worked, I would never be the same again. My parents were dead, my childhood home was destroyed, I had no family, and several people were actively trying to kill me. The journey deeper into this horrible world would begin with the struggle to extricate myself from this stupid bomb shelter. So why try? What was the argument against lying in place forever, wasting away as the smoky air licked its tongue into the corners of the evening? Let fall upon its back the soot, curled once about the house, and let me fall asleep again. Because you're 22 years old, Olivia, and it's time to stop being afraid of things you're capable of doing. Shut the heck up, I screamed as I flew to my feet, tears finally streaming. I'm sorry to yell at your memory, Dad, but it's too much, so shut up. I caught the edge of the floor on my first leap. My sloth slippers slid against the wall as I strained my arms to do a single pull-up. I probably should have ditched the slippers, but I was committed to getting over the edge, and the adrenaline wouldn't let me stop as my muscles burned with white-hot rage. And I slowly poked my head over the top, reached out farther, pushed my legs against the wall, hooked one knee over the lip, and rolled back into the wreckage of my life. I sobbed and choked in the ashes. Olivia, you'd be amazed what you can accomplish when you're really mad. Not now, Dad, I gasped through the sobs. It hurts too much to remember you right now. But it wasn't my father's memory that forced me to stand up, turn around, and look for his charred corpse in the rubble. No, that was all me. Dad knew me well enough just to push me to the first step. I was so disoriented that I didn't know where to begin. The cool night sky had replaced what was once my kitchen ceiling, but I stopped thinking and started feeling. I would find him. The conscious part of my mind begged me not to look because I didn't want to see the man who raised me so discreated. But the unconscious piece, the strong one, knew that I had to be with him one last time. It didn't take long. I only needed about 19 seconds to heave 13 boards aside, distantly impressed at my own strength. Then he was in front of me. The dwindling firelight illuminated a barbecued skull leaning against the remains of a wall. His blackened skin hung in clumps like overcooked chicken. Both eyes were gone, but a single patch of intact flesh on his jaw still had a few burnt whiskers. Through a gap of skin that used to be his cheek, I could see his gold fillings, shiny and clean. I knelt down and touched his skull. The remnants of his skin slipped beneath my fingers, like a thick film giving me way to a buttery pudding beneath.
Ew.
My mind was crackling like a tectonic plate, sliding from their assumed place to leave the landscape, changed so fundamentally that there was no hope of repair. I would let it happen. We're born whole, and permanent damage is just another phase for growing old. I promise that I'll always be your little shite, Dad. I pulled out Doodles and tapped his face against the charred lips I was too afraid to touch. We're kissing you goodbye. Then I stood. The man who shot my father had been right next to the hatch when my house burned. I guess he hadn't made it very far. The first sirens rang across open wreckage as I wailed through the ashes and dust. Smoke arose like a little chimney, but buried beneath each disgusting pile of shattered life. I found him. This man who was also reproduced to a blackened skeleton, but most of his graying hair was still attached to his scalp. I rested one sloth slipper against his ribcage, grabbed the base of his skull, and pulled. I met resistance as the cord in his vertebrae stretched, long, thin strands like angel hair pasta that I assumed were nerves. I grunted, pulled harder, and his greasy, ashy skull popped into my hand. It was surprisingly light. I grabbed a fistful of his hair and let the skull dangle as I walked away from my house. I headed to the garage, which was still whole. Garages are where we keep the pieces of us we're still afraid to label as a garage. Long after, that's what they've become. And there was one particular piece of trash that I needed. I found it and walked back outside. The fire was strong enough to see the remains of his face. As I lifted the skull to eye level, "My dad bought me this when I was 8, I explained to him as I held up the Louisville Slugger. I wanted to say something wittier, something that would have made my dad proud, but there was nothing. We were broken. So I wordlessly swung the skull by its hair, threw it up into the night sky, and lifted the bat.
Is she?
I was angry as I swung, but I let that direct my focus instead of distracting from it. I hit the dude's head so hard that it exploded on impact, the soft crack of his face followed only by the tinkling of 24 shattered teeth. I didn't cry at the double funeral, because tears were expressions of hope for healing. The parade of fellow mourners passed me like the world's saddest wedding line. I wish I'd had someone next to me. Half of the people were complete strangers. I realized how little we truly know our parents' lives and how much gets erased if they die without telling us. There was something incredibly depressing about returning to a motel in your hometown, and the impact is even stronger when two strangers are waiting for you outside. There was something incredibly depressing about returning to a motel in your hometown, and the impact is even stronger when two strangers are waiting for you inside. I've had enough creeps spying through my walls, I announced, upon seeing a man and a woman waiting by the bed. And I'm just walking in the door after burying my mom and dad, so I have precisely 0 patience to give. Either leave or kill me, because I have a habit of burning things to the ground when my back is up against the wall. See, the woman asked the man. You owe me $100. He looked annoyed. We were just at your parents' funeral, Olivia. We met you in line afterwards. I didn't recognize them. To be fair, they looked so ordinary that they were completely forgettable.
Okay, now that the polygel is pretty much all applied, we're gonna have to take a quick little break from the story so that we can shape these up. Okay, so I just got my hand file and my Makartt dust collector, and we're just gonna get reshaping these nails. I already wiped off that sticky layer, so yeah, let's just get reshaping. so here are how the nails look after we've shaped and filed. We're gonna start on the nail art. So I'm just gonna be taking this dark brown color, but it's not like dark enough like the picture, so I'm gonna mix it with a little bit of black gel polish. So I'm just gonna mix this together and hopefully it makes a nice dark brown.
Okay guys, now just put on this gabagool part 2.
Gabagool part 2. We're finally back with the story.
So sorry for leaving you on a little cliffhanger, but let's continue on. As I was saying, either leave or kill me, because I have a habit of burning things to the ground when my back is up against the wall. See, the woman asked the man, you owe me $100. He looked annoyed. We were just at your parents' funeral, Olivia. We met you in line afterwards. I didn't recognize them. To be fair, they looked so ordinary that they were completely forgettable. There was a time when fear would have driven such situation, but I looked inside and simply felt nothing. Sorry, I answered coolly. This day has been a bit of blur. Is that why you didn't recognize half the crowd? The man asked, crossing his hands in front of him. My nostrils flared. Who are you? We worked with your father, the woman answered, grabbing a manila folder from the bed. You worked for the Transportation Authority of New. We worked for his real employer, not the one he lied to you about. My head spun, but I didn't show it. I closed my eyes and tried to conjure a reason to dispute her claim, but I couldn't find any. Then I searched for an explanation for the past few weeks other than what she was saying. I sighed. Who did my father work for? She squeezed her folder. The line. I shook my head. That's the point, the man interjected. Everyone in our organization lies to our families. It's the only way to keep them safe. Didn't work this time, I depanned. The woman froze. Visage cracked just a little. No, she answered. It didn't. But it held for years, the man added. You never suspected anything as a child, did you? My jaw slowly fell. How long did he... Since before you were born. Olivia, I'm so sorry about everything, the woman pressed. Softer this time. A few weeks ago, he was discovered, and they tried to get to him through you. My stomach knotted and unknotted itself like fried calamari that was not quite dead. Is that why the man in my... Yes, he answered. They put a man in your home and told your father to cooperate. They tapped both your phones, interrupted and diverted calls, watched you 24 hours a day, and told your father that you'd be tortured to death if he informed you what was happening. Fear shot through me, but only for a moment. I snuffed it out while a tiny flame, weak at first, but picking up momentum as every timid corner of me engulfed by cleansing yet controlled rage. What does the line do? I whispered. They stared at each other for a long time. Whatever agreement they reached was silent. Then the woman turned to me, her lips white. We exist because someone has to keep Delora in line. I shook my head. What's something you can either know everything about or nothing, the man answered. She took a deep breath before speaking again. You're young, which is important. And I'm so sorry, but you have minimal family connections now, which is macabre asset. Yet you still have a close emotional connection to our organization. Most importantly, the woman continued, her lips growing even thinner, you've proven yourself in the field and you're very, very motivated. I folded my arms. I've proven myself in the field? The man's eyebrows pushed to his scalp. You killed 4 men that night, Olivia. 1 with a bat and 2 different fires killed 3 men, she went on. We're selective, the man said gently. A trial by fire is rare circumstance that elicits great attention. I pressed my palms against my eyes until tiny, colorful fireworks were all I could see. What the heck is that you people do? I yelled, dropping my hands to my side. She stepped forward and handed me a folder. You can find out the answers you're willing. I opened the folder and looked for the first page. What's this mean? Every prospect has a code name, he explained. I ran my fingers across the word. Who chose Slugger? I asked quietly. The man squeezed his wrist. Once you start getting the answers, Olivia, there's no going back. Ever. I snapped the folder shut. Are you kidding me right now? I shot back, grabbing doodles from my purse. I looked at them each in turn until both were unable to meet my gaze. There's already no going back. I squeezed doodles for comfort. Now tell me, how do we get started?
Okay guys, so here's how the nails look. We're just gonna finish off this set with some matte top coat.
Well, that was like the last Reddit post that I could find about that story. I mean, it's sort of a cliffhanger, but at least you kind of know what's going on. Like, her family is like connected to like this like secret thing that it looks like if someone finds out you're part of it, you will get targeted. Like, it seems like it could be a really cool story if we continue reading it, but I'll try to find it. I've seen that there might be a book about it on Amazon, so I'll look more into that. That might just be the end of that story.
I'm gonna finish off the look with some cuticle oil.
And here are how the nails turned out. Let me know what you guys think of this nail set in the comments. I hope you guys enjoyed this long video, and I hope you guys enjoyed the nail set and the story. And yeah, we're pretty much done with that Reddit story. It was really good, and I'm sorry to have kept you all waiting for the ending. This nail set was really fun to do. Some of the nail art was a little bit challenging, like that flame design, and I couldn't do that sparkle nail art like that was in the picture because my brush was just like not thin enough for that. I just decided to go for those wavy lines on the pointer finger, and I still think it turned out really nice. This set is just perfect for the fall time with the brown color, and I just thought this nail art was really fun to do and really cute. And yeah, that is pretty much it. Thank you all so much for watching. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will talk to you all in my next one. Bye!